remember going to the Parents of Multiples subreddit and just being completely overwhelmed by all the posts and discussions that were happening on there. I mean, we were hearing from parents of twins, triplets. There was even some quads on there that were sharing about their experiences. And not just sharing their experiences, but they were asking questions that I had already also had in my back of my mind, that Elizabeth and I both had. And it was really overwhelming because you can see the different types of answers you'd get on the discussion threads. But it was also in a way reassuring because there's thousands of people who are in a similar boat as you. Now, majority of them are probably twin parents based off of most of the posts on there, but there are a few triplets and there are a few quads. But primarily it's a twins group. And if you're expecting twins, triplets, or more, then today's episode is for you. We're going to be covering a few different things. We're going to be covering gear, what type of gear you may need when it comes to having multiples, the mental preparation, because that's huge. That's a big part of it. And you'll see that online. A lot of people who have multiples, the mental toll it takes, it's a lot. It's a rewarding experience for sure. But let's be honest here. It is a lot. So that's what we're covering in today's episode. We're going to be going in everything that you need to know before having your multiples. So let's get started. My name's Isaiah Hernandez. I am your host of the Triplet Double Podcast. I am a 30-year-old father with 5 kids under 5, including triplets. This podcast is for parents of multiples, expecting parents, or people who just want to get a little bit of a look on the inside, kind of like what our day-to-day is and what our lives are like. So honestly, I want this podcast to be for everybody, but first, it is a parenting podcast. If you're listening because you are expecting multiples, which I have to first off tell you, congratulations. You have such a fun and wild ride ahead of you. If you guys haven't already, make sure to subscribe to wherever you're listening to your podcast at. Follow me on social media. We have Instagram, we have X, and we have TikTok. All handles are at Triplet Double. And then if you want to reach out to me directly, maybe there's a topic you want to find out more about, want me to discuss, have any questions for me directly, feel free to email me at isaiah@tripletdouble.com. So let's jump into it. I thought this episode would be great to do because I was looking for a lot of answers when we first found out about the triplets, about the girls. Because naturally, we had done 2 singletons before. I had my son Logan, and then I had Layden. But singletons, no matter how close in age they may be from each other, because Logan and Layden are only a year and a half apart, that's close in age. But it is nowhere near the same as having multiples. It's not the same as having twins. Never the same as having infant babies at the same time, multiple infants at the same time. It's just a whole different ballgame. But hats off to everyone who has their kids close in age, and hats off to all the multiple parents out there, because it is a lot. There's a lot that goes into this. And we were so unprepared when we first found out. I mean, there was no way we could have been ready for what that news dropped when the tech went through and gave us the ultrasound. But we figured it out, and emotionally, we were not ready. I think we had everything ready. We had all the stuff that we needed to be in a good place. And again, some of this stuff we already had because of our older kids. But now we're talking about the introduction of 3 new babies at the same time. And that was going to be something that physically we could prepare for, get the house ready, we could buy the stuff that we needed. But also mentally, we were just like, whoa, like this was a lot more than we could have ever expected. And I don't think there's any way to really mentally prepare for that. There really isn't. I mean, because you may go in 100% cool, calm, and collective, but there's going to be tough days. And this is not to scare anybody. If you're listening to this and you're expecting multiples, this is not to scare you. Because That's not what I'm trying to do. I want to be honest with you, though. It's going to be a lot, and that's okay. I think as long as you can build a strong foundation at the house, you have your partner, you have family support, you hire support. Between those three things, you don't need all three of them. Having all three helps, but you don't need all three. But if you can be able to at least start with a strong foundation at the house, and you and your partner are on the same page raising these multiples, that's a great start. And that will definitely help you stay calm and collective. So let's get into the essentials of what you need, okay? I'm going to first work on gear that actually helped us. Now, like I mentioned before, for the most part, we had everything that we needed, but there was a lot of things that we ended up buying like a couple months in where we were like, yes, we should have had this from the very beginning because this would have saved us plenty of time. So I want to go down this list, and I will do my best to remember the brands and remember every little detail about this different gear that we had, but I will make sure to include it probably somewhere in the show notes and the summary and whatnot. So a bottle station. You need a bottle station set up and ready to go. I can't tell you how important that is. Making bottles on the fly, pulling things together in the moment of, it's realistic. You can do that. But being prepped, having your stations ready in advance, because you're going to be having a ton of bottles to be making, especially those first few months of the infant stage. And so having a well-prepared bottle station is absolutely crucial to staying afloat and keeping your head above water. When we had the girls, first few months when we had them, we had 24 bottles a day. That's how much they were eating. 3 bottles? God, I suck at math. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. Yeah, they were eating 7 times a day. And this goes in the middle of the night too. So we're not talking about just like from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. they're eating 7 times. No, we're talking about from 24-hour time span. They are eating 24 bottles a day. And that was a lot. A single baby, like sometimes bottles can pile up. Imagine doing 2 or 3 at once. It's a lot. And so what helped us was Elizabeth was really good at this. She was very organized on the bottle stations because the bottle stations gave us a great flow, allowed us from start to finish, and it also tied back into like the dishes. Okay, next. We had personally bought the Snuggle Me loungers. This was such a big help because it helped us with self-feeding. Now, this is where you need to really figure this out because in these first few months, unless you have an extra pair of hands or more than just one extra pair of hands with you at all times, you're going to need to figure out how to self-feed by yourself. Like you need one person's going to have to figure this out. And it can't be the mom the entire time. I remember when we had the girls, Elizabeth was pumping like every 2 hours. She had to pump for breast milk every 2 hours to make sure, these girls were able to get as much breast milk as possible. Of course, we used formula, but still, going back, the toll on her to pump that often for 3 babies, not just one, for 3 babies, it was a lot. So, and she couldn't breastfeed. With one baby, typically, you're able to breastfeed, and like the mom's able to breastfeed, and that's a little more controlled. There's not as many bottles that are involved. But when you have multiple, more than one, even twins you can still probably get away with breastfeeding. I think you can still breastfeed both at the same time. Now, triplets, there's no way to do that. And so what we invested in was the Snuggle Me Lounger. And this helped me as a dad get more involved and help with the baby's feedings. Because again, Elizabeth could not be feeding these girls all their bottles. And in general, even when we had Logan and Layden by themselves, I had always been involved with feeding. It's good bonding time. And yes, it looks different when you have more than one baby. But the Snuggle Me Loungers allowed me to get to a space where I was able to help feed them by themselves. And anyone, honestly. So we bought 3 Snuggle Me Loungers. We bought the waterproof covers as well because, again, babies are just going to naturally make a mess. That's what they're doing as they're learning to figure out how to eat and they get stronger. So we bought 3 of those Snuggle Me Loungers and we would lay them there. We lay them on their side and we would give them some elevation, tuck a few burpers in there. Elizabeth had a great routine going with that. And she taught me how to, fold the burpers just right and put them in the right place. So that way the babies were elevated perfectly. And then the bottles sat and the girls were able to just eat. And the bottles stayed and kind of basically it stayed in place and it flowed nice and slow for them. And all 3 of them would eat at the same time. Now, there's going to be challenges there because, again, I know when we first brought Samara home, because Samara had been in the NICU for 90 days, she was eating a lot less than Nora and Amelia because she was a lot smaller. But also, she was a very particular eater. So there was times where sometimes doing the self-feeding it didn't work out perfectly. But that's okay because at least we had 3 of these Snuggle Me Loungers, and if Samara needed that extra attention to help make sure she ate, I was able to pick her up and feed her. And then Nora and Amelia were able to just continue eating their bottle. So cannot recommend enough the Snuggle Me Loungers. Any brand, honestly, you can find baby loungers. I think if you just type in baby loungers, you'll see all these little pillows, and they're full body pillows to where the baby can lay down on. And you can use them for multiple reasons. I mean, look, you buy them with a single baby, right? I mean, you can buy them with a single baby and place your baby on the floor and the baby can be nice and cozy in that lounger. And so, again, can't recommend the Snuggle Me Loungers enough. Let's get into bottles. We had really great success with the Dr. Brown bottles. And they're the bigger versions. You have different versions of bottles, right? And so the Dr. Brown bottles we had were what the NICU was using at Kaiser Riverside. They were using this with the girls. They highly recommended it. And I think naturally we went with Dr. Brown because it was something that the girls were already familiar with thanks to the NICU. And those NICU nurses, great job on getting the kids on a schedule. They got the babies on a great feeding schedule. And that's those are the pros with a NICU when you have multiples, is those nurses. They really do a fantastic job on setting you up for success and getting you ready to go. So going back, they were using Dr. Brown bottles. We had never used Dr. Brown for the previous babies, for Logan and Layden. I forgot the brand that we used for them, but they had a different bottle. It was just something that I think Elizabeth and I had done research on, and this is what we found. We liked it the best. The kids did a good job eating out of it, and that's why we chose those other bottles. But with the triplets, NICU told us, hey, we use Dr. Brown. Girls are already using it, so we're like, why not? And Dr. Brown has a lot of different stuff, and I'm going to go through the Dr. Brown list of different products that they have that I would recommend. So, yeah, we ordered a ton of bottles from Dr. Brown just to make sure we had enough in cycle because, again, you're feeding them every 2 hours to start, 3 bottles down, got to make sure you have enough for backup. But not so we were able to pile up dishes. It was just to have we had to have a constant machine going. So we would feed them, I think, 2 or 3 rounds. Maybe I think it was 2 rounds at most. Get those in, then we have to do a load and wash all those bottles to make sure it was constantly on the cycle because there's nothing worse than having tired, hungry, screaming babies and you don't have a bottle to feed them. And then you're struggling and you're rushing to do a 5 to 10 minute wash and dry on all those bottles. And it just adds to it can really add to the stress and to the, can get you a little overstimulated. Another question you're probably figuring out is, do I need a double or triplet stroller? There's plenty of triplet strollers out there. Personally, we never got one, and it wasn't because we were against a triplet stroller. It was because Logan and Layden, we had already invested in the Mockingbird stroller. And what was nice about the Mockingbird stroller is that it allowed a additional seat on there. And so we just bought the extra seat, and we bought the attachments for it. And so we bought those attachments, and we had a double stroller. And so with the girls, when they were babies, like tiny, we would put Nora and Amelia in the double stroller, and Elizabeth would use a carry-on for Samara. And Samara was super tiny. She was like 5 pounds when she first came home. So that made sense. And so we used that. That's what we were using for our stroller situation. There's plenty of options out there. You could do the same as us. You could do a double stroller and do a carry-on. Or you can invest in a triplet stroller. I know plenty of triplet dads who use the triplet stroller, and they have nothing but good things to say about them. You can look them up online. I don't have a specific brand, but I would definitely recommend, before the babies get here, you would get a double or a triplet stroller, depending on how many kids you have, how many you're expecting. So definitely get that, because once you get them home, naturally you're going to want to go out for some walks, especially if you're spending those first couple of weeks really, really tied down, taking care of the babies. When the girls got of age, they got a little bit older to sit up, and they were able to, mainly sit up. That was the big thing before we could really use this. But we also had Logan and Layden, our older kids, so this came in handy sooner than later. We invested in the Veer wagon, and this wagon was a 4-seater, and we still use it to this day. It's a great wagon, and it allowed us to be able to sit the babies in there when they were able to hold themselves up. And then we also were able to use it with our other kids too. So you get 4 seats, you get the attachments in there, you're able to put a little snack tray in there so they can reach out for their snacks and eat while you take them for a walk. So you can look into the double stroller when you start, and then I would recommend, or look into the double and triplet stroller when you start, and then look into the Veer wagon, or just a wagon in general, when they get a little bit older and they can sit up, because they're not going to want to stay in that stroller the entire time. Plus, the wagons give you more visibility of the children. Next, let's get into cribs. So with twins, you can probably just do, you can do just 2 full-size cribs. Now with triplets or more, I can't recommend enough the Graco mini cribs. The Graco mini cribs were they were very unique, because again, our house at this time, when we had all our kids and we had the triplets, was like a little under 1,300 square feet, 3 beds, and these were not very big bedrooms, as you can imagine. So when we had Logan and Layden in their own room, they had the full size convertible cribs, right? That were started off as cribs, but you can turn them into toddler beds. We couldn't do that with triplets because there wouldn't have been enough room for a changing table, for a rocking chair, shelves, and all that stuff that they needed. So Elizabeth had found these mini cribs, and I believe the brand is Graco, Graco. These mini cribs were awesome. They worked so well. They allowed us to fit all 3 girls in the same room and next to each other, and it gave us plenty of space for changing table, rocking chair, everything else we needed to put in that room. So if you're looking into cribs, and let's say you have a small house, you can look at doing mini cribs, even for twins, because again, that could really save you as well. That could save you on space, especially if you have a small room to put them in. And me personally, I believe that they all can share a room. Like your multiples can always share a room. They're going to want to, and it's just even better for schedules, because if have them in different rooms, especially when you're doing feedings in the middle of the night, that's just going to be a lot of bouncing around. But keeping them all in the same room, they started this journey of life together. Naturally, they can stay together and comfort each other. And so we recommend it. I know plenty of multiple parents twins, triplets, or more who have been like, yeah, they all our babies are always in the same room. They're not, and we're not separating them. They stay in the same room until, of course, they're old enough to make that decision themselves to be like, hey, look, we don't want to be in the same room anymore. And that's going to be years later. But for right now, as babies, same room, highly recommend. Another thing we invested in was a baby scale / changing pad. So it was important to us to always monitor the triplets' weight. And I think that's only natural because, remember, the girls were all under 5 pounds when they were born. And Samara was 1 pound and I think 6 or 7 ounces. So they were tiny coming in. And when they came home, Nora and Amelia were above 5 pounds, which is the requirement, I believe, from the NICU to send them home. Well, Samara came home 90 days later and she was 5 pounds finally. And we just knew in general that we wanted to be able to weigh our babies and be able to monitor their growth, because I don't think at this point we're not being seen every week by our doctors. So we were gonna, like, a lot of that was on us. Like, it's on the parents now, which makes sense, right? That's our job. So we wanted to make sure we were staying on top of their weight, and we invested in a baby scale / changing pad. So every time we would go in and change them, or for bath nights, we would always lay them on that changing pad, and you were able to use it and connect it to your phone's mobile app, and you were able to see the weight. It would tell you the weight. Here's Nora's weight. Here's Amelia's weight. Here's Samara's. So it was really great because we were able to always kind of see, like, hey, she gained a pound or she lost a pound. And we were able to kind of monitor that like almost every day. So highly recommend doing the baby scale and changing pad. It's a great option, and I think it'll save you stress because you're able to see and kind of figure out what's going on with the baby's progressions. We used a Hatch, which is a sound machine and nightlight. And we used this with Logan and Layden. Logan and Layden had their own hatches. And when we got to the girls, we knew, like, okay, we're going to use a Hatch again. Because, again, the Hatch you're able to use from your phone's app. And you can change the noise. You can change the brightness. You can do all that. And so when the Hatch was very useful because, as you know, with one baby, you're getting up in the middle of the night as they're in their infant stage. Now imagine 2 or more, let alone 3, right? With the triplets, we were in there a lot in the middle of the night. And not always because they were crying, but because we had to feed them every 2-3 hours. Like, it was required. Like, there was no bending on that. If we wanted to make sure these girls were going to grow and hit those milestones that they needed to catch them up, we had to be waking up multiple times. Now, this wasn't just Elizabeth and I. We had help. Like, that was the nice part. There was times where we were by ourselves for like 2 weeks at a time, but we had help. And Elizabeth's mom was staying with us when the girls were born, and she would always help for feedings in the middle of the night and whatnot. So you can't express that enough, the family help. That's important. And I know other parents of multiples who have family help, or if they have the budget for it, they hire someone to help in the middle of the night, and there's services out there. So we knew we were going to have to go in there a lot to feed them in the beginning. And so the Hatch was very useful because it gave you the nightlight feature. So rather than come in and say, use your phone light and kind of go around in the darkness, because we didn't want the girls to wake up. Like, we didn't want to fully wake them up. We wanted to make sure we went in and out. We went in there, changed them, fed them, all in complete darkness, because we wanted them to stay asleep. I mean, for our own sake, we wanted to sleep as well. You're going to need that sleep, trust me. So we wanted to do that. And so the Hatch helped us because on our phones, we were able to go in, and we kept our Hatch next to the changing table. So the Hatch, we would turn the brightness not all the way up, but enough to where we can see what we're doing when we change all the girls. And that was very crucial because it helped keep the girls asleep, didn't wake them up, didn't include too many bright lights going on, and the noise machine alone really helps the kids sleep. It still helps Logan and Layden sleep. So Hatch, highly recommend. Next, we have the Dr. Brown Pitcher. That's Pitcher. That helps mix breast milk. Great for all the moms out there who are pumping. And when you're making your bags and all that, can't recommend the Dr. Brown Pitcher enough. So much so, Elizabeth told me before this episode, make sure you write down that Dr. Brown Pitcher because that helped me a lot. She had 2 of them. So look into that Dr. Brown Pitcher. Helps mix the breast milk when you're making your bags and you have to freeze them and all that. Help get the milk moving. This one is, this next one you're going to want to look at for sure because it's unfair and unrealistic to put the expectation on the mom that she has to produce this X amount of breast milk every day. It's a lot. It's a lot of pressure. It takes a toll on their body. They just got done carrying the babies. Then to put that additional pressure on them to be like, hey, our babies can only eat through breast milk, so we need you to pump, and produce as much breast milk as possible. It's unfair. It's unrealistic. You know, everyone's bodies are going to be different. Some women produce a ton, and I think when you have more than one, like a woman's body is able to sense that. And I know Elizabeth's production was the most I've ever seen compared to Logan and compared to Layden. And so this next thing here that I want to remind you all to get is a baby Brezza. This is a formula maker. It's kind of like a little milkshake maker. Like you just stack your formula in, you put how many ounces you want. Of course, you have to have the water, right? It keeps the water warm, you know, and then it does its thing. The machine turns on and goes, and then it spits out the formula already mixed and made into your bottle. And so, of course, shake it a little bit some more, but it does all that for you. And rather than go in and warm up the water yourself or warm up the formula yourself, the baby Brezza is already on top of that. It's auto formula. So in the case where you're going to need formula, which you may need, just being realistic, you may need to invest in the formula route because depending where your baby's growth's at, weight, all that, it's all through your doctor, of course. Like your doctor's going to tell you all this. They'll let you know what you need. But most of the time you're going to need formula because you want to be able to help break up the breast milk. You want to be able to help save that breast milk. Don't want to have to go through it all. And if the mom's breastfeeding, it's unfair to just require it on there, like as a dad or as a family member helping. You want to also kind of get that bonding time in there with the baby. And being able to help feed is very important. So baby Brezza, highly recommend. Still use ours to this day, and it's just been phenomenal. Finally, the next gear I would recommend is the sterilizer and dryer from Dr. Brown. So this had saved us a lot. We had to sterilize all the bottles always, every night. And sometimes multiple times, depending how many bottles we went through. But we sterilized it, and we did this for Logan and Layden too. But with multiples, again, there's a lot more bottles than just those single babies. So we would sterilize, and then the problem we would run into is when we use a sterilizer is that it would leave them still wet. And again, we couldn't give the babies breast milk or formula through those bottles while they were still like that. So my mom had asked us like, hey, what do you guys need? And we were like talking to her about this dilemma of like, because it's sterilizing and then having to dry every single little piece, the nipple, the caps, the bottles, it was a lot. And so that added extra time because you're spending over an hour there doing dishes multiple times a day, trying to get through all those bottles and every little piece that comes with the baby's stuff. And so my mom had found Dr. Brown did the sterilizer and dryer all in one. And that was a game changer. That was a couple months in that. This is one thing that I wish we had going into having the triplets, like right away, because that would have saved us a lot more time on dishes and going through just getting their bottles ready. So Dr. Brown sells the sterilizer and dryer. So it's really great. Sterilizes the bottles, and then afterwards it dries it. I think it's like a 30 or 45 minute cycle that it takes to do all that, but very useful. We kept that right there in our bottle station. And I got to remember the brand. There's also a bottle warmer. There's a dual bottle warmer. So when we had first got the girls, what we did was we had Dr. Brown's single bottle warmer. And that was good. It was, again, for a single baby, totally. And even for twins, you can get away with doing the single warmer at a time because it's fast, it's good. However, we were running into the kind of how I mentioned earlier, when you got a tired, hungry baby, nothing stresses you out more than them crying and screaming for that food. And you're like, hold on, I'm warming it up. Because that's exactly what was happening when we only had the single bottle warmer. We eventually found a double bottle warmer, which worked great. And so at the time, what we did was we had the double bottle warmer, and then we had the Doc Brown single. And so that's how we would warm up the baby's bottles. It helped us. That also sped up the process a little bit because, again, babies are crying. They're hungry. You need to get there quick and do this. So I would recommend looking into a double bottle warmer. Highly recommend it. Let's get into clothes and laundry next. So we went over about some gear. Let's do clothes and laundry next. One thing you got to understand is you're going to do a lot of laundry. If you want to stay ahead, you want to make sure the kids or the babies always have something clean to wear, always have enough burpers to help clean up the mess, you're going to have to do a lot of laundry. We had multiple covers for the Snuggle Me loungers, just because, again, babies would leak milk on it. We had to wash those. We had multiple. If we only had one, it would suck because you only have like a 2-hour window, especially to start, between each feed. So definitely do look into like, that just gives you an example about like the laundry part. And then you have burpers. We had like 1,000 burpers, I swear. Like we had so many burpers to give these babies because they're eating every 2 hours. Depending how soaked the burpers got or how soaked they got, and we use the burpers, we'd have to, okay, now we have to wash that. So you're going to be doing a lot of laundry. So let's start with sleeper sacks. Baby sleeper sacks are great. There's different levels of sleeper sacks that you can get. So for example, depending how little the baby is, you have different sleeper sacks to where, it swaddles them. And you start off with swaddles. They get nice and swaddled. And they're laying in bed and they're sleeping. That's comforting. They need the swaddle. But there's different stages after they get past that swaddle where they start bigger. And so sleeper sacks, can't recommend those enough. We had so many sleeper sacks. We still use them for the girls because they're almost 1.5. We still use them. Soon we'll be done with sleeper sacks. It'll be a sad day. But the sleeper sacks are great because you don't have to worry about blankets. Keeps them warm. Keeps them safe. There's none of the scariness that comes with, when you try to use a blanket on a baby. Especially when they're that little. You don't need 100 onesies to start. You don't need all that. You can definitely, those aren't things that I would stress about. Going into, clothes and laundry, you don't need to begin with 100 onesies. And you'll learn that you'll kind of get an understanding of, especially as you're figuring this out, being a parent of multiples, you're going to figure out hey, we're not, our day's always going to be different. Our day's always going to be different. And some days will be busier than others. Some days we'll be exhausted, we'll be tired, and we're not going to do much today. Babies can stay in their PJs. They can stay in these onesies for a little bit longer. That's okay. So I would not worry about buying a ton of onesies and clothes right away for your multiples. If you get them gifted to you, awesome. Like a family are doing the baby shower and they're hooking you guys up with clothes, great. Not saying don't do that, but I'm saying you don't need to stress and be like, I need to make sure I have all these outfits, all these onesies ready. Just don't even worry about it. Get what you need, and as you go further, you'll know, hey, we need more, but don't overbuy. Next, we're going to do a little bit of a this or that. Zip-ups versus button-ups when it comes to onesies and pajamas. All day, can't recommend enough the zip-up PJs. They just work so nice and smooth. All of our onesies for the girls were zip-ups. All their pajamas, they were all zip-ups. It was nice and easy when we would go in and change them in the middle of the night. It's nice and easy when we change them in the middle of the day. Like anytime, the zip ups always came in handy. And it's super smooth, and they're so tiny too, so you just go like up and down. So can't recommend the zip up PJs enough. And as I mentioned before, 1,000 burpees or 1,000 burpers is exactly what you need. You're gonna need a lot of burpers. They helped with the self-feeding. It helped when you're feeding them, and babies get milk drooling out their cheeks. Invest in the burpers. They will come in handy. If you're having twins, triplets, or more, you got to look at your car situation. You got to figure this out. I guess not so much for twins, unless you have older kids, or unless you have kids closer in age to your twins. But for triplets, for sure, you're going to need to look at your vehicle. We had to change our vehicle. We didn't think we had to. That was the crazy part. We didn't think we had to because at the time we had a Buick. We were using an old Buick that my grandma had let us use. And so we had that Buick, and we had it with Logan and Layden. And when we found out about the triplets, we had done some testing and we were like, oh yeah, this will fit. Like that'll fit in the back of the Buick. But as we got closer, we figured out no, that was not the case. And unfortunately, we figured this out after the girls were born. So we did not have the car ready. We did not have our family car finalized before the girls were born. So that was a mistake on our end. We should have. Of course, we had a vehicle. The good thing about that was that the girls all didn't come home at once. So it's not like we left the NICU having to drive home 3 babies. No, they came in one at a time. So we didn't have to worry about it. I think that's why we didn't pick up we needed this. Our car was not right for this. So recommend testing out the car seats now into your vehicles to make sure they fit. The problem was Logan and Layden were still in car seats. So we had to find something that worked for them, that worked for all 5 of the kids. We did some research, looked online. We had a budget. I mean, we didn't have an unlimited amount of cash to invest in this nice car. So we had to be pretty cautious of what we looked into and what we could afford. And one of those things was the Toyota Sienna. The Sienna was a great vehicle. Still have it today because it's only 2 years old. But Sienna was great. It was, it's an awesome family car, great on gas. And it fits all 5 of our car seats. So can't thank Toyota enough for giving the Sienna an upgrade and making it a sweet car. We love it. So I would look into the Toyota Sienna if you're having triplets. I would look into, unfortunately, you're going to if you want the affordable route, you have to go a minivan. I guess that's the only way. The Toyota Sienna, in my opinion, was the best minivan that we saw. We saw a lot, but the Sienna made the most sense, and it's budget friendly. So look into that. There's other options out there. There's other SUVs, but from my experience, we like the minivan. So look into, test those car seats. You got to, no doubt about it. So those are some of the key things that I feel you all should know, when it comes to what to buy, what you're going to get the most use out of. Those are the things that I would recommend. Now let's get into a little bit of the social dynamics, right? So let's get into some of the comments from strangers and just in general mindset. Here's what you need to know. And you may love this or you may hate it. You may absolutely hate it. Strangers, and not even just strangers, friends and family are going to make comments. 9 times out of 10, harmless. They are going to be just conversation. But people are going to be butting in at some point, at some level. So they will come in and they will make jokes. They will share their advice. And in general, they are just going to be fascinated with multiples. It's a rare thing. it's a rare and beautiful thing. So don't take that too hard. Just understand that a lot of these people who are going to be reaching out, commenting and whatnot, they're doing it out of conversation. I can't tell you enough, like, how many times we've been stopped, how many, like, we received a lot of positive comments, but then you also get the strangers who make conversation and are like, better you than me. And you're like, excuse you? Like, you know what I mean? And they're just trying to laugh and make humor out of it. But it's just something that you just have to be like, okay, you set your guard up, you set your boundaries. But people will say to us, like, from me, here's the craziest things I've heard. So someone has legit said, man, I feel sorry for you. Better you than me. Or when I tell them I have all girls, they say stuff like, you must have been bad. And I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, how was I bad? Like, what are you saying? This is bad karma that I got 3 girls? Because I don't see an issue with having 3 girls. And I don't think anyone should ever be telling somebody that. And they mean it. And again, they say it with like a laughing tone, and they try to say it like in a friendly, conversational way. And they don't mean any harm by it most of the time. But eventually, you hear it enough, you're kind of just like, okay, like, stop. It's like, but it's just sometimes you just have to figure out and mentally prepare how you're going to handle that. And I don't think going in there and handling it back with like sass or attitude is the answer. Unless, of course, they are being malicious about it. Then, yeah, I would say maybe that's where it's appropriate. But in general, you just have to smile and wave like the penguins on Madagascar. Smile and wave. That's all you can do. Because it's just not worth investing your time and energy into those comments. It really isn't. You have to have your focus on your family and your babies. And so these comments are going to come. Get ready for them. But know that unfortunately, it is what it is. And just be ready to shift that anger or that annoyance and shift it somewhere that's proactive, that can help get you through the day. Like, shift that energy somewhere else that makes you productive. That's the best advice I can give. It's going to happen. Like, there's no doubt about it. So let's talk about finding communities. So I mentioned before that there's the Parents of Multiples subreddit, and that's a good resource. I mean, it helped me because when we found out about Samara's severe growth restriction, and I think I said fetal growth restriction on the first episode, I made a mistake there, but also when you look further into it, you can kind of see that depending on the medical terms and the doctor and how they refer to it, they often, with twins and triplets, those two often they're interchangeable. So, but when we found out about severe growth restriction, I had seen a few similar stories on Reddit on that Parents Multiples they had shared. And that had given me a lot of insight because you saw the person post, but then you saw all the comments for support, but you also saw people share their stories. So that was a good community. And when you post on there, people are very active. I think the multiples community is very in tune with each other. They support each other. They're there. So it's great for twins, triplets, and more. Look up Facebook groups. Facebook groups for sure would be a good one. I found the Triplet Dad group, and those guys have been great. They share their triplets. It's awesome. I can see so many diverse backgrounds, and you see all these different people from across the world, primarily the United States, but you see all these different people, and they share their kids. Like, we all share our kids on there. We share like updates, tell each other, Merry Christmas, tell each other Happy New Year, you name it. Like, we are all there for each other when it comes to that little group. And no one's posting there constantly every day, But, when we do post, there's activity and there's engagement. Like I said, we're wishing each other happy holidays. Like, that's something that's nice to have. You can see everyone share in the group, and you can see the different stages in life everyone's at. There's a lot of there's a lot of new triplet parents that are on this Facebook group that I see that are close to my kids' age. So that's cool. I see a lot of triplets who are, in elementary school, middle school, high school. I see guys who have their triplets already adults. And they always say on there, the ones that it's funny, you can see where everybody's at with how they speak and, how they reference their kids, how they reference their life right now. You can see that the older triplet dads are definitely more nostalgic for when their triplets were babies. Rightfully so. I think we're all going to feel that. I think we feel that now when you see your baby go from baby to a toddler to elementary school, teenager, etc. But you see that with a lot of the older triplet dads. And a lot of them joke, they'll be like, oh man, thankfully that's all over. And trust me, it's a lot of work. So I can understand why they'd be like, that early stages, like as far as like the babies and all that is over, because the lack of sleep hits you hard in that first year. But they say things, and I see dads on there who will be like, man, soak it all in. It moves fast. And that's true, because I can see that with our girls now. See that with the girls, see that with Layden, see that with Logan. It's crazy how fast it all moves. And it's one of the most oversaid things, right? Where it's like, treasure it while you can because they grow up so fast. But it's true, they do. And so I like that perspective in the Triplet Dads group, because you get people from all different stages in life with their triplets. So look up Facebook groups. You can definitely find them for twins, triplets, whether your mom or dad listening. Look in there. You can search for it like triplets. You can find Facebook groups for it. Let's wrap up with our 5 must-haves when expecting triplets. Number 1, obviously you need to buy the key items right away. And the key items I'm talking about are the sterilizer and dryer, like by Dr. Brown, the Snuggle Me loungers, burpers. Those are the examples of things that you need to buy right away, because trust me, they will save you time and energy. Number 2, zip pajamas are the MVPs. All day I'm going zip over button, onesies and pajamas. So look into that as well. It worked wonders for Elizabeth and I. Hopefully it does the same for you. This ties back into number 1, but number 3 is set up feeding stations so you can feed solo. You're going to have to learn how to feed them all solo. You can use the Snuggle Me loungers. You can use different strategies. You can look on TikTok. You can find different strategies. But for us, the Snuggle Me loungers worked great. So would definitely figure out some type of self-feeding station where you can feed your twins, triplets, or more all at once. Number 4, you need to accept help even if it feels awkward. You have to educate others on how to help you, of course. But if there's an opportunity to get help, figure that out now. Figure out how you can. Grandparents, relatives, hire a nanny, whatever it may be, figure out how you can get that help, because you're going to need it. It takes a village. And number 5, speaking of it takes a village, you got to start building that village now. Look around at what your resources are. There's a lot of resources in your town, believe it or not, for multiples. You can figure that out. You go through the city, go through the state. You'll be surprised what you can find. But if it's not that route, and you need to look at your family. Like, you need to look at who you have, friends and family that can be part of this village, because you'll need it. So those are my 5 takeaways for everyone who is having or expecting twins, triplets, or more. For everyone listening, you are not alone on this journey. There's many of us out there, myself included. So if you ever have questions, you know what you can do. You can reach out to me anytime. Everyone listening, I appreciate you all. Thank you for being here. Make sure to like and subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast on. And follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I'm on X. Handles are at tripletdouble.com. Like I mentioned before, if you want to see any type of new topic or anything specific you want to learn further about, be happy to email me at isaiah@tripletdouble.com. You can also DM me on Instagram, X, and TikTok. Thanks again for listening, everyone. We'll see you all next week.